The chamber of the Galactic Council hung like a crown above the blue giant star. Its walls were a ring of obsidian alloy, veined with pale light, and its tiers overflowed with representatives from hundreds of civilizations. Voices of every pitch and timbre wove into a restless hum. War banners shimmered in the holographic air, casting a red tint over the assembly. At the center stood the podium of the Chancellor, raised on a dais so every delegate had no choice but to look up. Chancellor Valeth ascended with the precision of a predator. Tall, cloaked in black ceremonial armor, his scaled features caught the starlight with a cold gleam. His voice carried like a blade across the chamber. Esteemed Council, today, we must decide what to do with the humans. His narrow eyes scanned the tiers. They expand unchecked. They fight amongst themselves, yet advance still. They cross into our spheres with reckless abandon. We know their history. Endless war. Endless blood. It is only a matter of time before they turn their savagery outward. Shall we wait until their claws are sharpened against us? The murmurs swelled, some murmurs sharp, others fearful. A representative of the Keller clicked mandibles in approval. A Karthari elder stamped a hoof, booming. Containment is necessary! Valeth raised a taloned hand for silence. A vote of war is not taken lightly. But we are faced with a species bred by violence, untempered by wisdom. I say we strike now, before they grow strong enough to challenge the Union. The sound that followed was not debate but agreement. The hall shifted toward consensus like a tide. Even the speaker, impartial by duty, could not disguise the weight in her posture. Only one figure had yet to speak. At the lowest level, almost lost in the shadow of alien grandeur, sat Elias Ward. His uniform was plain, black fabric with a silver insignia at the breast. No banners, no escorts, no display of power. Only the calm presence of a man who had walked into a hall that wanted him dead. His hands were folded, his expression unreadable. The speaker turned her gaze toward him at last. Captain Ward, as envoy of Earth, you are permitted words before the vote. A hush spread. Dozens of eyes, lenses, and sensory fronts pivoted toward the lone human. For many, it was their first time seeing one of his kind in person. Small by galactic standards. Soft, unarmed. What threat could such a creature pose? Elias rose with deliberate slowness. His boots clicked against the alloy floor as he stepped toward the center, beneath the gaze of hundreds. He did not bow. Valeth sneered. Speak quickly, human. History will record your final plea. Elias looked up at the tiers. His voice was even, neither loud nor submissive, but carried with the quiet weight of iron. You call us violent. You call us dangerous. You parade our wars as proof of savagery. You think this makes us weak. He let the silence breathe, his eyes meeting theirs, one delegate at a time. You are wrong. Violence does not define us. Survival does. The chamber rippled with reaction. Some scoffed, others shifted uneasily. Elias' tone sharpened. You sit in judgment, but you do not understand what a death world breeds. That word, death world, struck the air like a spark. Alien translators whispered it across species whose languages lacked such a term. Valeth's lip curled. Poetic theatrics. Nothing more. Elias did not look at him. He spoke to the chamber. On Earth, survival is not given. It is fought for every day. Our storms tear cities apart. Our ocean swallows ships whole. Our ground quakes and burns. Plagues wipe out millions. And still, we endure. Gasps rose. A waterborne delegate whispered in disbelief. Your world kills you. Elias inclined his head slightly. Constantly. And not gently. He paused, letting the image take root. We did not rise because our world was kind. We rose because it tried to break us and failed. One of the softer-voiced species, their delicate forms swathed in silk, shivered visibly. No species could flourish under such cruelty. Elias allowed the murmurs to spread before continuing. You sit here, secure in the stability of worlds that nurtured you. You think us reckless because we've spilled blood. But what you see as recklessness is adaptation. Where you might collapse, we endure. Where you might yield, we fight on. Valeth leaned forward, claws gripping the podium. A predator glorifying its scars does not make itself less of a beast. For the first time, Elias met his gaze directly. If you lived on Earth, Chancellor, you would not have lived long enough to mock it. The silence that followed was not emptiness, it was pressure. The chamber strained under it. Elias' eyes swept the tears again. His voice dropped lower, forcing them to lean in to catch every word. You call us a threat. Perhaps we are. But not because of what you fear. Not because of what we might do to you. We are dangerous because we have never stopped surviving. Because every time the world tried to erase us, we answered by enduring. That is what a death world makes of its children. He let the words hang. For the first time since the session began, the council did not know how to answer. The speaker shifted in her seat, fingers pressed together, unreadable. Delegates muttered in uneasy voices. The certainty of war no longer flowed so freely. Elias stood alone at the center, steady as stone, not pleading, not begging, simply telling them the truth. And in that truth, something colder than threat had crept into the chamber, respect, laced with fear. He folded his hands behind his back. You wish to decide our fate without knowing what we are. Then listen. Listen well. Because you have not yet heard the stories of a death world. His words struck the chamber like thunder. The silence after was total. And the vote, which had seemed inevitable, was no longer so certain. Chapter 1 End. The silence that held the council was fragile, as if the air itself waited. Elias Ward stood at the center, steady under the weight of 100 alien eyes. He let them breathe in the quiet before speaking again. You want to understand what humanity is, he said. Then you must understand what it means to live where existence itself is war. He raised one hand, not to gesture dramatically, but as if balancing an invisible weight. Let me begin with plague. A hiss of translators rippled outward. The word itself unsettled the chamber. Centuries ago, Elias continued, a sickness spread across our world. We call it the Black Death. It carried by rat and flea, unseen, unstoppable. Entire cities fell silent. 1 in 3 of my species died. An insected delegate chittered in alarm. 1/3 of your entire population? Yes. Elias' tone did not waver. Imagine a disease sweeping through your worlds, killing every third person you know. Imagine the funerals, the hunger, the collapse of order. Then imagine surviving. Because we did. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably, brushing at their robes as if the disease could leap across centuries to infect them now. Elias lowered his hand. And the Black Death was only one. We have endured countless plagues, smallpox, cholera, influenza. Each one took millions. Yet here I stand. Valeth's laugh broke the tension. Sharp, derisive. You think endurance of disease makes you strong? It makes you careless. Civilized species guard against pestilence. Elias' gaze met his, calm as before. We had no choice but to adapt. Those who survived passed on resistance. Our immune systems are weapons honed by generations of struggle. Can you say the same, Chancellor? Or would one sickness leave your dominion in ashes? The chamber rustled. Some delegates shifted their eyes toward Valeth, questioning without words. Elias pressed on. But disease is only nature's opening move. Let me tell you of war. He did not raise his voice, but his words carried like steel striking stone. For tens of thousands of years we fought each other. Tribes with clubs. Nations with swords. Empires with cannons. Then came the bombs that burned cities to ash in a single night. The chamber stilled again. No translation softened the bluntness of his tone. He let the silence hang before continuing. We have slaughtered one another by the millions. We've destroyed our own homes. And still, we rise from the ruins. Each time, we rebuild stronger than before. A delicate, luminous species whose skin shimmered like crystal leaned forward. Their voice was soft, horrified. You destroyed your own cities? You did this willingly? No. Elias' expression remained composed. Not willingly. But when it happened, we endured. And we remembered. Another delegate snarled from the tiers. You glorify bloodshed! Elias turned toward the voice. No. I despise it. But it is part of who we are. You see only savagery. What you failed to see is that every catastrophe tempered us. Every war taught us to rebuild. We are not proud of destruction. We are proud of our survival. His eyes swept the chamber again, catching those who listened not in horror, but in dawning comprehension. He shifted. And beyond war, beyond plague, there is the world itself. Earth tests us in ways you cannot imagine. Let me show you. He raised his hand again, palm up as if offering proof. In the north, the air freezes flesh in minutes. In the deserts, the sun burns until water boils away. In the mountains, air thins until the body suffocates. Yet we climb those peaks. We dive into oceans so deep pressure crushes steel. We left our world's grasp and set foot on a barren rock where no life exists, our moon. Because challenge is not a barrier to us. It is an invitation. Gasps fluttered through the chamber. Some could not imagine seeking out death when survival was already assured. Others stared with something resembling awe. Vailith's claws scraped against the podium. Madness! You waste yourselves chasing death. Elias' reply was sharp, cutting across the chamber. No, Chancellor. We claim victory in places where death reigns. We are the only species here who sought to stand where life was never meant to exist, and succeeded. For a heartbeat, even the speaker shifted in her seat, her expression unreadable. Then the chamber erupted. Delegates argued in dozens of tongues, some voices raised in alarm, others in scorn, others in unease. The translators struggled to keep pace. A scaled ambassador bellowed. They are unstable. War is the only answer. A feathered delegate screeched back. No, it is suicide to provoke them. Elias did not move. He stood as the storm raged around him, calm at the center. When at last the speaker's gavel struck for order, the echoes cracked like thunder through the air. Vailith seized the moment, his voice rising above the others. Do not be deceived! This is nothing but fearmongering. They paint themselves as indestructible, but words are wind. Their tales are meant to frighten us into inaction. Elias turned toward him, unflinching. Not fearmongering. Truth. Every word is carved into the scars of our history. You believe you can frighten us with fleets, with armies. But you cannot terrify those who have already lived through worse. The words cut through the chamber like a blade. You fear what we might become, Elias said, voice low but steady. You should fear what it will cost you to try and stop us. The chamber fell into a tumult louder than before. Some shouted for war, others demanded caution. The speaker called for silence, her voice edged with strain. The vote will be delayed, she announced at last. Further deliberation is required. The hall roiled with conflicting voices, but the decision was final. For the first time since the session began, war was not certain. Elias lowered his hands behind his back once more. His eyes met Vailith's across the chamber, and in that moment it was not arrogance that shone there but something colder, certainty. The Chancellor looked away first. The chamber awoke the next cycle, a place still thick with the echoes of yesterday's tension. The seats were filled, though many delegates wore expressions less confident than before, their confidence fractured by the human they had dismissed so easily. Elias Ward entered quietly, yet every eye turned, sensing that the story was not over. Chancellor Vailith rose, voice edged with irritation. Captain Ward? You have had your say. Do you intend to lecture us until the stars themselves burn out? Elias walked to the center without haste. He allowed the silence to stretch before replying. No lecture. Only truth. You have heard fragments of our story. But fragments never reveal the whole. He paused, letting the murmurs fade. You wish to believe we are fragile. That we can be broken. Then hear the stories you've yet to consider. The first tale he offered was of fire, but fire unlike any they could comprehend. In the 20th century of your reckoning, he began, humans unleashed weapons capable of erasing entire cities in a single instant. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Tens of thousands died, not in the cold impartiality of nature, but by our own hand. Yet we endured. We rebuilt. We healed. And we remembered. Whispers slid across the tiers. Some delegates turned pale beneath their masks or exoskeletons. Others whispered. They rebuilt. Yes, Elias said, voice even but unflinching. Every time we have destroyed ourselves, we have risen again. No calamity has ever claimed our species entirely. Nature, disease, war, even ourselves, none have prevailed. Valeth bared his teeth, claws clenching the podium. This is madness. You speak of horror as if it is achievement. Elias tilted his head slightly. Achievement? No. Reality. To survive what would end others is not achievement, it is necessity. And we have thrived where necessity demanded it most. He let the words settle, then pressed further. Consider the ice ages. Humanity survived glaciers that crushed the lands, swept the forests, buried whole ecosystems under frost. We endured famine and scarcity unimaginable to you. We adapted, migrated, hunted, and persevered until the world warmed again. A delegate from the aquatic worlds murmured in disbelief, bubbles rising from gills. Your species lived through ice? Yes, Elias said simply. And through more. Supervolcanoes, meteor strikes, pandemics. Each time, the world tried to extinguish us, and each time, it failed. Valeth slammed a claw down. All anecdotal. A species with your record is unstable, reckless. You prove nothing but unpredictability. Elias leaned forward, voice calm yet carrying the weight of inevitability. You misunderstand. We are predictable only in our survival. You can forecast storms, or politics, or tides. But you cannot forecast humanity. You cannot calculate what it will take to break us, because we refuse to be broken. The chamber grew quieter. Some delegates shifted nervously. Even Valeth's scales no longer gleamed with unchallenged authority. Tension had etched itself into the fine lines of his face. Elias' voice deepened, gaining the weight of centuries. You think fleets, weapons, intimidation will decide our fate. You are wrong. We are tempered by catastrophe. We have faced extinction and turned it aside. You do not scare us. You would only teach us to endure your wrath, and in that endurance grows stronger. A low murmur swept the chamber. Some delegates exchanged glances, their previous certainty eroding. The concept of humanity as a species unbreakable in the face of universal calamity was sinking in. Valeth tried to rally, his voice rising. They bluff. This is rhetoric, words with no proof. Their confidence is arrogance, and arrogance dies quickly. Elias' eyes locked onto the Chancellor's. Bluff? Look at me. I am proof. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not armed beyond what you see. Yet I represent a species that has endured millennia of storms, plagues, wars, and annihilation attempts. That is not bluff. That is history. That is truth. And it is what any who challenge us will learn, if you force our hand. He let the silence stretch, letting the weight of his words sink into the room. Delegates leaned in, some whispering among themselves in disbelief, others staring in uneasy recognition. Humanity's narrative was not one of conquest alone, it was endurance against the impossible. Elias took a measured breath. War against humans is not a battle you win. It is a story you survive only if we allow it. Every attempt to subjugate us has failed. Every threat has hardened us. Every challenge has strengthened our resolve. You do not face a species, you face a storm that does not break. You will not destroy us. You will forge us. And what comes forth will be unlike anything you have faced before. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Not the quiet of peace, but the frozen stillness of awe and fear. Delegates who had clamored for immediate conflict now exchanged worried glances. They realized the truth. Humanity could not be tamed by force, and any attempt would be catastrophic. Vailith's claws flexed, his body tense. We cannot allow this. Elias interrupted, voice low but cutting. You can try. But remember, Chancellor, what you attempt to do. And remember, before you decide to test us, that we are children of a death world. We have already walked through fire, and we are still standing. The chamber remained silent. The speaker's gavel struck once, thrice, again, each tap resonating with finality. The Council shall postpone any declaration of war against humanity indefinitely. The words landed like a hammer. Vailith's glare faltered, then hardened, but even he could not find words to rally the chamber. The human had claimed victory without a single weapon, without a fleet, without a threat of conventional power. Only truth and the weight of history had spoken. Delegates began to murmur, carefully, as if rediscovering their own voices in the shadow of this revelation. Some whispered warnings, others debated cautiously, but no one dared challenge the decision immediately. Elias stepped back, allowing the tears to shift as the council began its deliberation. His shoulders relaxed slightly, though his eyes remained alert. Every step carried the authority of someone who had faced extinction and emerged unbowed. He walked toward the exit, silent yet commanding. As he passed Vailith, he spoke quietly, but his words carried across the air. Remember this day. Remember what a death world breeds. Remember humanity. The Chancellor did not answer. There was nothing left to say. The chamber had heard what it needed. Outside, the vastness of the orbiting citadel glimmered in the starlight. Elias paused at the viewport, looking toward the distant blue giant. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured, not by fire or fleet, but by will and endurance. And in that quiet, a lesson lingered: underestimate humanity at your peril.